If you continue on this path, that's where you will end up.
Hear me then. You shall live to see tomorrow. I thought my offer was fair, but you don't seem to value your life.
This is madness!
No. This is the curse!
I've never seen you so angry, Dance. That was downright Spartan of you.
Truth is, there were at least a dozen scenes vying for that spot. That's the kind of game the Cursed Crusade is. It's one of those games that I just knew when I played it that I would have to talk about it.
Yours, his nightmare.
Where do I even start with this game? How about the fact that you probably have never heard of it? It came out back in 2011, and about 2 weeks later Skyrim came out and killed any chance for this game. Now let's be fair, Skyrim and the Cursed Crusade aren't even close in terms of genre. It's just, imagine being the journalist who has to review the Cursed Crusade. The next game on your desk to review is going to be Skyrim in 2011. I can't imagine any of those journalists even considered giving this game a chance. Some games live on after the fact. Not this one. Good luck finding a copy. Despite coming out in the digital era and despite the physical copy requiring a Steam account to complete the installation, the game itself isn't sold on Steam. At least not anymore here in the US. Attempting to access the game on an American account immediately redirects you to the front page. This is because the publisher, ATLUS USA, lost the rights to sell this game digitally, and since this game bombed, no one cares to seed this game's torrents. The developer Kylotonn doesn't care to renew the license or sell it themselves. The Cursed Crusade is a cliff note on their website, and that wasn't there a year ago. To use my physical copy, I had to create a Steam account while on a European VPN. Kylotonn is pretty much only known for racing games, and also Bet on Soldier in 2005. Budget titles are their domain. How or why they decided to produce a medieval character action game is anyone's guess, but boy did they have ambition.
Hey, Dance. Remember when we had to push that piss-soaked mantlet up to the gates of Byron Castle?
The men were given orders to, relieve themselves on the mantlets before we use them.
But this isn't just a character action game. This is a character action game with RPG elements, a cooperative focus, and the ability to almost seamlessly transition between two versions of the game world. The game does have a cooperative focus, but, you know, good luck getting somebody to actually play this thing with you. But since the game relies on it, that means that you have an AI to follow you around and fight for you occasionally. It's mostly not as bad as some other games in that regard. And those RPG elements are pretty ahead of their time. I mean, you level up your combos and stats independently with the ability to get additional points to level up from exploring the levels. There are modern role-playing games that don't do that very well. And the near seamless transitions are pretty ambitious for a AA studio to attempt. That means that every level in the Cursed Crusade has to have an alternate version. Every character model has an alternate that displays. There's a new selection of music tracks and all the effects change.
You too belong to the masquerade.
So funny thing, every now and then the cutscene will end, but the AI will start fighting anyways. Kylotonn doesn't get to take credit for anything they did well. From here on out, they're irrelevant. What's the point in praising or criticizing a studio that has practically disowned this game, and for good reason? This game isn't very fun. I thought I'd have the edge against that since I'd already played through it once and progression is supposed to carry over between playthroughs, but no, for some reason, hitting new game doesn't start a new game with your existing save, it deletes your old one. The hardest difficulty's locked your first time through, and I really fucking hate when games do that, besides my precious fury. Because I've gone practically comatose playing the Cursed Crusade the first time through. Character action games are a little dull to me. It's mostly just mashing down the attack button, occasionally performing some defensive move, and just watching the action. Thus, they have to define themselves by the crazy world they inhabit or by asking the player to learn a bit of technical skill with enemies. The Cursed Crusade has neither of these. Thus, the entire game can be beaten just by mashing down that left mouse button and occasionally parrying an attack. There are parry breaks, but enemies that parry are few and far between, and you have to hold your parry button down to ever use the deflection counter, since enemies don't attempt their own parry breaks otherwise. If you decide to play this game, here are my 3 tips. 1. Use the crossbow or bow when available. It's absurdly overpowered. Although ammo isn't too common, it will show up every time you actually need it to progress, so be liberal with your usage. 2. Don't let your curse meter charge. The game's gimmick is the curse. Basically, when you slip into hell, you have access to a new skill set as well as enhanced damage, but it drains the entire meter, it'll start taking your health. However, since the last meter recharges pretty damn quick, the ideal way to play the game is to keep using it to kill enemies, letting it recharge during the protracted kill animations, and then using it to kill the next one. And 3. Dual wield melee weapons. If you use the curse a lot, this absolutely devastates crowds of enemies in a flurry of chaos and death. Don't bother with shields, two-handers, or one-handers unless your weapon breaks. Outside of that, there isn't much more to say in broad terms of the gameplay. It's something that happens between cutscenes, and cutscenes happens between gameplay. So let's talk about the Crusades. You don't kill a single Muslim in this entire game, unless like this guy was a secret practitioner. You do kill some pagans.
Master Tatakios, let us cover your retreat.
No, wait. The Varangians weren't pagan at this point in history. They'd converted to Orthodox Christianity, so yeah, this is entirely a game about killing Christians. Now, I get it. You don't want Muslim killing action in your European developed game because you might get some funny looks, but here's the thing. It, comes with the territory. When most people are thinking Crusade, they're thinking the Third Crusade, but no, let's just go with the fourth one. So instead, we get an entire crusade where we kill nothing but Christians and a few demons and damn souls. But yeah, almost 530 Christians are felled at Dence's hands. That's our main character's name, Dence. Dence nearly reaches Soap McTavish in kill count, and Soap had a gun. Jackson had a better claim to being in a game about a crusade, but seriously, why go to the effort of including all this historical parallelism, including naming pivotal characters after historical figures, and not include details like the fact that the Fourth Crusade weakened the Byzantine Empire to the point that invading Muslims were able to conquer much of the former Christian Empire? Or why not just set the game in the Third Crusade? Well, I know why, and the answer's disappointing. Assassin's Creed was blowing up when this game was being conceptualized. I have no doubts it was one of the contributing factors. I mean, the extensive kill animations seemed to indicate they wanted a piece of that market share. But the difference, my friends, the difference is that Altair is a Shiite Muslim from Syria, while Dence and Esteban are devout Christians from Western Europe. And that makes it a hot political topic. But if you didn't want that, then you should have stuck to making shitty budget shooters and racing games. You could have done something new, like mention the fact that the Crusades started out as largely retaliatory for Muslim jihads in the past and were twisted into a political instrument, but no, let's just do the most obvious thing and recount the events of the Crusade and keep making perpetual reference to how bad everyone is for participating in the whole affair. Player are a bad person for killing these people because you are fighting under false pretense. Except I don't even have the illusion of choice. My choices are partake in this horrible thing or turn off the game and don't. Your levels are designed in such a way that you have to clear out these hordes of enemies before you can proceed. If I wanted a bad history lesson on the problematic nature of the Crusades, I'd go watch Crash Course World History, but I don't want that. No one should want that. What I want is to play as a fucking crusader going on an actual crusade. A long and grueling quest against impossible odds with only my faith in Christ. This game only captures one aspect of that description, that being that it is long. Most of this game comes down to mashing down left mouse button, which I think corresponds to light attack? No, it's actually horizontal attack. Really? Alright, fine. Given what I know about the game's armor system, it makes a small degree of sense to have horizontal and vertical attacks versus your standard light and heavy. Let me explain the armor system. This game has locational damage, which is a lot more than I can say for most quote-unquote good character action games. Areas are divided into head, chest, and legs. In order to damage people, or be damaged, all the armor pieces in a section have to be knocked off, and then the attacker has to land a hit in that section. Worth noting is that damage location is tied to impact spot, not an arbitrary point, making it possible to hit people in your backswings. Now all that sounds well and good, and having a small degree of control of where you're swinging would be logical, but here's how it really works. You have 3 armor types but 2 attacks. Vertical attacks will hit the helmet, and horizontal attacks will hit the chest. There's only one enemy in the game that can hit boots consistently, and it's these big guys. Jesus. Now, theoretically, you could just chain a bunch of attacks targeting a specific area in order to quickly dispatch foes. Sounds smart, right? Except this game has combos, and these combos change the location where your attacks hit, so you'll end up stripping an enemy of all their armor anyways. So, why not just find a cheeky combo that targets the same area 10 times in a row? Well, weapon durability. You know, writing this out, this sounds like the most badass game ever. It has tons of stuff I like. Locational damage, weapon durability, unique combos for every weapon, making each one feel unique, but somehow the game manages to fuck up in every regard. Like, what's the point of having the player try and learn all these combo movesets if the player is going to have to keep switching movesets every couple minutes or so? And it's that often. Weapons rarely last past 3 enemies, especially if armored. They can also be damaged from parries. I mean, this all makes sense, and it goes a long ways to explaining why there's so many instances of me getting my ass kicked for a solid minute straight. It's because I didn't have a weapon to use. Of course, you can still use the broken weapons. This has some unintended side effects. One fight, I broke all my weapons and kept swinging my broken sword until the boss went down. The game usually, by default, selects the first undamaged weapon in your inventory to display. But in this instance, I didn't have one, so my character was waving around a crossbow, which was obviously not meant to be done, as it wasn't rigged into his hand properly.
2 bearers of the curse. There's no difference. I will not allow you to claim what I've spent my life to protect.
Am I still in a nightmare? Or did you really just save my life?
It is a nightmare, but it's more real than you might think. Stand up and fight if you want to live.
You got it, Caballero. I'll fight with you. I owed you my life, but you owe me an explanation.
I will answer all of your questions later. For right now, let us drive this demon back together.
This will be your grave.
Other times, Dents will posture around with his greatsword, except if it's broken, then he'll just wave the broken hilt around, pretending it's a full blade. Broken weapons do have one benefit over normal weapons. When enemies die to them, it won't play the kill animations, which can be a real time saver as some of them are quite extensive. I swear, the game is almost designed around a balance of the more effective weapons having longer kill animations and the less effective weapons having shorter kill animations. But that would imply that there was any sort of balancing at all. That said, it is corroborated by the fact that just using Purify while in the curse is by far the most effective way to kill people. It continually recharges, ignores all armor, stuns enemies for well over 10 seconds. But if you are foolish enough to be next to the enemy when it kills them, Dents will proceed to suck their soul out, Dementor's Kiss style, in what feels like the game's longest kill animation. I guess I haven't really talked about the curse. In theory, it's a good system. If you let the meter get too high, it forces you into the curse mode, and if it gets too low, it starts draining your health, which can be a real pain since health regenerates in chunks rather than all at once. However, there isn't really a long-term negative I can see to being in the curse, so being forced into it isn't a negative consequence. Of course, you should never let that curse meter charge up since you're 10 times more effective while using the curse. I'm sure somebody out there is raising an inquisitive finger to that sentiment, and yes, the characters are, to some small degree, aware that they are using the powers of hell on a righteous crusade. Which brings up its own point.
Hell's fire shall serve us! Blasphemy or
Slaughter
not,
these fools!
I'm gonna say, the curse falls on those responsible for the vilest affronts on humanity.
You are a pretentious young man.